And that's a strange thing in war. It is such a desolate feeling if you happen to get trapped out by yourself somewhere and you're being shot at and there's nobody there to help you. As a matter of fact, I openly said, "Mother, please help me." That's how bad it was. Yeah.
It's, there's days yet that I don't want to have any connection with humans at all. Nothing to do with them. I have certain places where we live now, and I had places where we lived before, that if I want to get away from it, I could go to those places in the woods and I could put my hands up and scream as hard as I could scream to try and get this devil off of my back.
An epic thing is happening amid the crumbling and burning walls of the compact town above the surly green waves of the Adriatic. Western Canadian troops got into the outskirts today.
Can you tell me about Ortona?
Oh, Ortona, yeah. Ortona was only a town on the east coast of Italy of no particular importance. And never quite sure why the Germans decided to make a stance there, but they did.
The Ortona troops were a bit cocky and said, as they went in, "We'll have Ortona for you in the morning." They got the shock of their lives. They didn't realize the kind of troops that the Germans had in there. They had their best airborne troops in against us.
And I don't think he was one of those buggers under 6 foot tall. They had the great big leather boots up to here. They were vicious. They weren't human.
Our fine troops found themselves facing a parachute division, a formation of savage, cunning young zealots, as good as anything the warrior Germans ever produced.
Wir waren Fallschirmjäger. Wir mussten dahin, wir waren eine Elitetruppe. Wir waren gefürchtet. Wir waren von den Alliierten gefürchtet. Wirklich wahr. Als grüne Teufel genannt, ne? Ich weiß nicht, ob Sie das wissen. Wir waren die besten Soldaten der Welt, waren die Fallschirmjäger.
Well, day one was to get from this side of the street over to that side. For what reason, I don't know why we had to get from here to there, because to me it all looked the same going up, houses on both sides.
Das hatten wir vorher, wir wussten, dass die Kanadier kommen und wir wussten auch, dass wir Ortona nicht halten können. Und da haben wir auch, um die Kanadier in schwere Kämpfe einzuwickeln, haben wir den Marktplatz mit Maschinengewehren, mit SMG, MG 42 bestickt und haben auf die Kanadier gewartet.
The town of Ortona was piles of rubble. The Germans had blown a lot of houses down, and the streets were literally full of rubble. They'd done this deliberately. They'd blow houses down on both sides to fill the street full of rubble. They'd set their machine gun up on top of that, and they're looking down on you, and if you get out in the open, you're dead.
And now in Ortona, the action is as fierce, perhaps, as modern man has ever fought.
Western Canadian troops and tanks are fighting a vicious street battle against Germans who contest every window and every yard with cunning skill and desperate courage.
You couldn't stick your head out in the open. They had you covered. That's why we ended up mouse holing.
Well, mouse holing, most of those houses were all joined together. And with the butts of our rifles, we would bang and bang on the walls till you opened a hole, and then we'd just toss the grenade in.
Man kann sich das gar nicht so erklären, wie schnell das geht. Ruckzuck. Manche sind aus dem Fenster rausgesprungen, was auf halber Höhe war, um bloß nicht erschossen zu werden. Und dann sind manche wieder aus dem Fenster gesprungen, weil unten die Kanadier ausreißen wollten.
Sometimes, when possible, we'd use the anti-tank gun and blow a big hole in and then just go from room to room.
You know, then just somebody else would come along and clean up the bodies, and you just keep on going.
You know, you see a guy all bleeding and wounded and shot up, or his guts hanging out. You just forgot about fear or stress or anything. You just went out and you tried to go and save him. This is that's what I joined up for, and this is what we done.
In the command post, Captain Vic Soley of Edmonton said something that sent a thrill down my spine. He pointed at two lightly wounded men and said, "Those two men and several other wounded have disobeyed orders. They refuse to evacuate. They don't argue, they refuse." One of them said, "Sir, we are going to see this thing through to the end."
In the town of Ortona, let's say, first day you lose 30 men, they're replaced, you're still standing there. The next day or that next night you lose 20 or 30 or however many, you're still standing there. I'd done this for 23 months. So you can imagine how I felt. You know, your luck just keeps running out, and you're down to the last breath of air, and you're still standing. And I would like an answer to that.
Like Stalingrad, and through the same apocalyptic pall of smoke and fire and maniacal determination, the battle has this quality of nightmare, and the rattling hurricane of the machine guns never stops.
Nobody could move. It was one of Hitler's last stands in Italy. He told his troops that you fight until the end. I know you just keep wondering, in the name of God, is this ever going to stop? You know, when will it stop?
It was one of the most fiercest battles you've ever seen. One of our boys his leg was shot up real bad, just hanging there. So I run over and I try to get a field dressing on him, and I'm tearing away at his pants and whatnot, and Dr. Granger come over and says, Rudy, quickly get your jackknife out. I got it out, and I thought he meant to cut the rest of his pants away so we could get out his wounds. Oh, he said, cut the rest of his leg off. It was horrible.
The square was the killing ground. In the morning, when we stepped out, the sergeant told us, step out and have a look, but don't go too far. But when we did get out and looked, what I saw was a dead German lying there with no head, and right beside him was a big donkey. It was puffed up ever so big, but that head thing bothers me because it wasn't there. And I seem to dream that I wonder what he looked like. I don't know what happened to the head, I don't know. And that still, to this day, sticks in my brain.
It was a maelstrom of noise and hot, splitting steel. Perhaps 30 or 40 Canadian-German machine guns were erupting at once, but it sounded like hundreds. If it wasn't hell, it was the courtyard of hell.
Das muss man mitmachen, sonst kann man das gar nicht so menschlich erklären. Also das ist fast unmöglich. Man muss das mitmachen und erlebt haben, wie das ist, wenn einem der Tod im Nacken sitzt. Da haben sie unheimliche Kräfte. Sie entwickeln einen Mut. An Tod denken sie gar nicht. Sie wollen nur weg, weg, weg oder...
I remember for this one incident, a German machine gun setting up on one of the higher mounds of rubble in the street, and the machine gunner was just a kid, and he'd got hit in the face, and his eyeballs were hanging on his cheeks. Corporal Squires, he could speak German, he hollered for him to give up. He says, "Come and get me," and just stuck the machine gun like that until he ran out of ammunition. That's what they were like. He was about 17 years old.
Did you shoot him? Or?
Yeah. I didn't, but yeah, he was shot. Because even though he's blind, he's still pouring the lead at you.
You know, it was a terrible feeling to see people die. I know I put many of the Germans away with morphine. We used to bring them in that was German prisoners that were wounded, that were shot through the lungs. And I remember Fairfield and Dr. Granger and both Dr. Anderson, they say, well, we can't help them, so just give them a couple of shots of morphine and go and bury them. And we done that. And I know I've buried some Germans that weren't even dead yet. We just threw them dug a little bit of a grave and threw some ground over them.
They weren't even dead?
Well, well, you have to give them a couple of shots of morphine. Well, they're out. You don't know whether they're dead or not, but they're going to die anyway with, you know, with lung shots.
Did it disturb you?
Oh, yes, it did disturb. I still get nightmares over it. This is why I haven't talked about it for years and years. I was trying to, you know, to avoid to have these memories come back.
It is Christmas Eve. There is still the hardest of fighting in the streets of Ortona.
Each day, we thought the bloody combat would become less intense. Each day, it became more intense. The enemy would not break.
Ortona was just about blown to rubble. On the 24th of December, the Germans blew up St. Thomas Cathedral. There was hundreds of Italians hiding, taking shelter there. They drove them out onto the streets before they blew it up. There was no Christmas truce there at all.
Christmas Day. I am speaking now from this Canadian field dressing station, not many miles behind the front, where Canada is fighting one of the greatest battles of her history on Christmas Day. Just near me are some Canadian soldiers in the ward who are going to sing carols for the benefit of the wounded. They're just starting to sing.
And the one interesting part that I found amazing is that General Vokes, who was commanding 1 Div, decided that his people were going to have Christmas lunch, war or no war. And we had captured a big church on our way into Ortona, and he brought all his cooks and his kitchens up there, and he made Christmas lunch.
The Christmas dinner, it started at 11 o'clock, December the 25th. They held in a little church. They called one company in at a time. and they'd have dinner, and the pipe major, Essen, would blow the bagpipes, and they'd have the organ playing, and they'd be having carols and whatnot, and they'd have a great dinner, all the food you could eat.
I don't know how they brought it up. They must have come as far as they could with a Jeep, and then they carried it in containers. It was warm, and I'm not sure if it was beef or pork, but it was warm meat and gravy and potatoes and one bottle of beer.
Was the Christmas dinner within range of the German guns?
Oh yes, yes. You still, they were still, the German guns was, the shells are still breaking all around. The Germans with their 88 guns were still lobbing their shells into Ortona. Yes. I never took part of it because we were too busy picking up the wounded.
Were your thoughts about Christmas that day?
No. I thought about staying alive. I realized it was Christmas Day, and I suppose for this film, I might as well add, I actually shot a German on Christmas Day. And at the time, it was just another day, and he was just another enemy.
Was he down on the square?
He was down on the square coming towards the building that I was in.
You kill him?
I don't know, he dropped, and two guys ran out and dragged him back, and I held my fire. And at that time, you know, I was just doing my job. It was just another day, but I kind of hate to talk about it now.
Why?
It was Christmas, you know. Thinking about it now, you know, I should have taken my chances and let him go, because, you know, it just bothers me because it was, I'd killed somebody on Christmas Day or wounded somebody. I don't know if he was wounded or killed. I have no idea, but just the thought of me doing that is kind of upsetting. Very upsetting, as a matter of fact, but when I talk to the kids, sometimes I cry, still. So.
At 8 o'clock this morning, there was a strange silence. The colonel grinned when I came in. I said, "Don't tell me." And he replied, "Yes, I think we've got Ortona."
Wir mussten dann aufgeben, weil die Übermacht war zu groß. Und da war es vorbei, ne? War Ortona gefallen. Dann im Ende Dezember sind wir alle ab. Da haben wir Ortona aufgegeben. Dann war es aus.
Everything was dead silent. What a feeling to hear that, nothing, just dead silent. It's hard for you to gather all these thoughts. All of a sudden, you know, everything just comes to a standstill. It was a pleasant feeling. What a relief. You know, everybody is tired, and you've been going straight for 8 days, day and night.
I don't know where the people that lived in Ortona, I have no idea where they went. But I know that the day that they pulled out of there, German pulled out, that they were coming in from the caves that they had dug in. And I always remember one woman carrying a little baby, just born, I presume, into a piece of burlap, carrying it out of this cave. And they were all asking for food, and we never had food to give them, so they suffered too, the population, the poor.
dead of Ortona, the bell of its cathedral, the Cathedral of St. Thomas the Apostle, tolled. For the Canadians who died in taking the town, for the Germans who fell defending it, and for the dust and ashes of the cathedral itself, the bell tolled. For the living as well, the bell tolled, calling them to prayer. The priest, Don Pietro.
I have nights where I dream that I go back to Ortona and saw this German going with these long winter coat on. There's 3 guys. They tried to get me, but they haven't got me yet.